Jamey Jasta from Hatebreed just announced that this spring he's got another solo album coming out, and there's gonna be some pretty big deal guests on it, including Scott from Anthrax, Zetro from Exodus, Chuck from Testament, Phil Demmel, and perhaps a bunch of others. So that news, and then the fact that I brought he and Seth up in my last video, makes this one pretty well timed. Big disclaimer before anything else though. This video is absolutely not me trying to talk any shit, because I've met Jamey and Seth, and they were both very nice, honestly. Yes, even Seth Putnam. What's up, Drive By Bukkake, because that was your show. But alright, let's get into it. Now, while it doesn't feel like the stories seem to have made a lot of waves in metal history, which that's probably because it happened before a lot of the people were using message boards and stuff, I think it's worth documenting. For one, because it's funny, and two, because I think it adds to the memory and the legacy of Seth. This occurred at metalfest, February 01 at the Palladium in Worcester, where AC was scheduled to headline the second stage and Hatebreed the third. But what's important about that is that the third stage was at a different venue, the Commercial Street Cafe, slightly further down Main Street, but don't look for it, it's not there anymore. Now, while the incident that seems to be recorded by history is that it was a fight, I'm here to tell you what actually happened, since I was there, saw it with my own eyes, and involved. And note that it seems the only major contributors, at least on the internet, to this story's retelling really come from its two central figures, Seth and Jamey. Seth's version was mostly bullshit, and Jamey's is cloudy, and I'll tell you why I think that probably is, because it's an important component to the truth value of this story. Seth's breakdown that can be found on the Q&A section of his website that's only accessible today through Wayback Machine is that Hatebreed got moved from headlining the third stage to the second stage, where it was decided they'd play right before AC. The reasoning behind that, according to him, is because there were sound issues going on at Commercial Street Cafe. Now, I was there for the last band that played that night, Fragment, who played right before Hatebreed was supposed to go on, and I didn't notice any sound problems at all. And Fragment was awesome, by the way. They were one of those metal-y hardcore bands whose singer did a slightly higher pitched scream, not too different from somebody like Piecemeal or Diecast. But what I really suspect happened was that the promoter realized the place would go haywire when Hatebreed went on, and the floor was just too small to contain what chaos would arise. So he made the decision to put him back upstairs at the Palladium. I agree that was ultimately a good call, because as soon as Fragment's set ended and the news got around that Hatebreed wouldn't be in the room, basically a stampede took place with people trying to leave, and a fight broke out in the doorway. So that tells you a little bit about the overall mood of everybody at that moment. Now here's where the real story begins. Me and my friend Dan make it out of Commercial Street Cafe and back to the Palladium. Probably much to the disappointment of everybody who wanted to see Hatebreed set in full, they'd already been playing for a bunch of songs by that point. I remember clearly walking in immediately before A Call for Blood started. Now, according to Seth, he and Josh Martin, who's also not with us anymore, rest in peace Josh, who died while, as reported by the Associated Press, quote, horsing around on an escalator at the Providence Place Mall in Rhode Island, had been at Irish Times, the bar next door, the whole day instead of at the Palladium. Now, bullshit part number one. He said that when he and Josh went back at the time they were scheduled to play, only to find Hatebreed on stage, there were lots of people in the crowd, AC fans to be specific, that were heckling Hatebreed because they were mad that they were playing instead of AC. That would have had to have occurred near the back end of Hatebreed's set, because I remember during Not One Truth feeling the sharp kick to the back of my leg that was from Seth. It was unintentional, but it was after he quite literally stumbled through the door right behind me. Now, while technically there could be some truth to the heckling from AC fans during the beginning of Hatebreed's set, because I wasn't there for the first three songs, I doubt this very seriously for a few reasons. One, by the time I'd gotten to the second stage, there were already many people who were clearly Hatebreed fans on the floor, and Hatebreed fans were tough, man. Many of these people were in hardcore crews notorious at the time for being violent and starting fights, and they clearly outnumbered the AC fans. Two, the Hatebreed crew were also very intimidating compared to AC's metal crowd, so I seriously doubt there was much, if any, loud shit talk coming out of the mouths of AC's fans during Hatebreed. But okay, so Seth's now in the crowd and he's watching Hatebreed on the second stage. He himself, however, is talking shit, and loudly too, probably because he was pissed that he'd have to wait longer to play. Jamey, understandably, is on stage and he's giving it right back, though only very lightly. Hatebreed's set finishes with with before the signer, and there wasn't a ton of breaking down to do at that point since lots of the gear that was being used that day was shared to keep things moving. Seth then gets up on stage and he starts trying to mic check. He's tapping on it, he's trying to talk through it, but nothing's coming out. Simultaneously, people from the crowd who were still largely dwelling Hatebreed fans and crew, they start talking shit and yelling things to him. Seth's basically ignoring them, and after a few minutes looked like he decided to call it quits, meaning the sound guy had cut the PA for his mic and the amps, and AC wouldn't perform after all. Why it was decided they wouldn't get to play, I have no idea, but I was certainly disappointed. Seth hops off the stage and he either physically bumped into somebody from Hatebreed's crew or they themselves pushed him because a large skirmish then occurs. I say large because it quickly spread to where Dan and I were standing and we got pulled into it. I was trying to make my way out of it because I'd already been out cold once earlier in the day, taking a spinning fist to the jaw from somebody in the pit during Scarhead. But the following point of this part of the story is crucial to understand because Seth says on his website, bullshit account number 2, quote, 20 of their friends formed a big circle and started punching. They were either punching themselves or the ground because on the video of this, you can see 20 wiggers punching and me standing 5 feet away with my arms folded. That was bullshit. Seth was indeed engaged in the skirmish. However, and I use that word strongly because that's really all it was. It was a push match at best, not even really an aggressive one either. But he, I, and many others were pushing and being pushed and just trying to keep balance. And here's the climax. At the moment Seth claims he was standing with his arms folded, I happen to have my eyes locked on him and he was instead in a defensive stance. Not pushing at that second or with his arms folded because they were at his side. Suddenly a voice shouts from behind us nearby saying, "Seth, the cops are coming in." He hears this and then out of the blue, and here's the hilarious part, drops to the ground without having anybody lay a finger on him, fully on his own accord, and he's just laying there, presumably to appear as though he were a victim. 2 cops indeed rush in, and to this day I have absolutely no idea why, but they pick him up off the ground, cuff him, and arrest him. They weren't in the room at that time to have seen him doing anything, and if just pushing people was their reasoning for the arrest, it could have been practically anybody else at that moment. So ultimately, Seth and AC got the shit end of the deal, because not only did the promoter decide they wouldn't play after all, Seth gets arrested for, like, no reason. Hatebreed shows definitely used to be violent back in the day. I remember one specifically early in 03 in Springfield, Mass, which, interesting side note, I went to with none other than Adam 22 of No Jumper fame. But the show, which was performed not as Hatebreed, but rather a call for blood, possibly due to contractual reasons since they'd recently signed to Universal, ended when a giant fight broke out and it couldn't be contained. So that was it. But that show was cool though, because they played all of Satisfaction plus a few songs from Under the Knife, but they were still playing during the fight that ended it all. Oh, and the reason why I think Jamey's recollection of the Seth Putnam story is cloudy. He himself wasn't really even involved in any of the pushing during it. In fact, he seemed to have not even been in the room anymore. Plus, this happened over 24 years ago, and since then he's played a million shows and put out 8 albums with Hatebreed and a bunch of others, and he's guested on a ton of tracks, etc. And the only time I've ever heard him mention this story was once on his podcast, and he tells it gracefully and with a lot of class, which is honestly nice considering Seth's not with us anymore, so pretty stand up on Jamey's part. So there you go, man. There's a piece of what I consider to be a funny as hell moment in extreme heavy metal history. This might be a long shot, but for anybody watching, were you there? Or do you perhaps have any personal stories involving Seth Putnam? If so, please do let me know in the comments section. But alright dudes, hey, if you liked the video, cool man, maybe you can give it a thumbs up. Or if you just like hearing somebody bullshit about heavy metal, you know what to do, hit that fucking subscribe button. We'll see you next time on Concrete Spew, but until then, stay psychotic, my friends.